Welcome to my True Scary Story YouTube channel. I want to welcome you all and ask that you subscribe now, comment on my newest video, and introduce yourself. The Sinful Society is very welcoming and are some of the nicest people on YouTube. I narrate for you guys out there, and I want you to share your true scary stories with me so I can feature your scary story on an upcoming video. Cheers to the freshest horror content on YouTube. Make sure you email your story to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. The link to my email is in the description box below as well. Sit back, relax, enjoy, stay sinful. Answering 911 calls all day might seem like a boring job, but when you're working as a 911 operator or another type of dispatcher, you're bound to have some of the scariest and most unsettling conversations. This collection features story from real-life 911 and emergency dispatchers who share their personal accounts of nightmare calls on Reddit. Compiled are the most disturbing and frightening calls operators and dispatchers have ever received on the job. It's clear from every story that working dispatch and helping people in life-threatening situations is one of the toughest jobs to do. From Redditor, The Spirit Tracks. My mom is a dispatcher for Phoenix. She had a call where a guy was calling in advance because he was going to kill himself. Well, he did, but he didn't hang up. And legally you're not allowed to hang up unless there's some very specific circumstances. So she had to sit there and listen to him die. From Redditor, Wang Chung. I was a 911 dispatcher and a volunteer firefighter in the town that I dispatched for. To set the story up, the way 911 works in the state I lived in at the time was your call will first go to a 911 call center where an operator pulled up all the electronic information, GPS location if cell phone, and then determines the location, usually by asking the caller, before forwarding the call to the proper fire department dispatcher in the area of the call, who will get the location and the emergency information, and then dispatch the fire department and/or ambulance. The 911 operator will stay on the line while the caller talks to the dispatcher, but they usually don't say anything and let us talk to the caller. If we need additional information, they sometimes chime in with additional info. So, I'll first say that I wasn't dispatching the night of this particular call. I was actually one of the first on the scene with the fire engine for the call because I was the volunteer firefighter that night. 2 cars full of girls that had just come from a soccer team pasta dinner decided to go ghost hunting in our town late one night because we had an old abandoned mental hospital in our area. We also have very windy, unlit back roads. The girls were going too fast, and one of the cars didn't negotiate a sharp corner very well. The vehicle rolled, and 2 girls were ejected from the vehicle before the car rolled on top of them. These 2 girls did not make it. The eerie part about the call was the next dispatch shift I worked. I talked to the dispatcher who was on that night, and we reviewed the tapes of the call. Even though I was on the scene for that call, listening to the recording of the call was terrifying. I heard our dispatcher answer the call, but all that could be heard on the other end was screaming. Screams of horror from teenage girls as they try to help their friends. Sheer terror. I've never heard screaming like that before, and I doubt I ever will again. That's when the 911 operator spoke up over the screams to the dispatcher. Hey, I have no idea what is going on. I wasn't able to get any information from anyone. The call comes up on GPS in the area of 123 Street. That's all I have. Luckily, the dispatcher was smart, realized that there was a true emergency, so he not only dispatched my department, but the next closest department as well for extra personnel. Listening to that playback was one of the most unsettling things I've ever had to listen to. From Redditor, Psychedelic Goat 42. The creepiest phone call I ever took was while dispatching for my university while I was still in school. A girl called saying she was hiding in her dorm room closet because the girl that had been stalking her had just broken into her room. The caller claimed that the intruder simply sat down on her bed and stared at the wall until the police showed up. It was eerie because it was just so abnormal, not normal person behavior at all. From a former Redditor. A lady calls in hysterics. I spend a solid 2 minutes on the phone, trying to get her to calm down enough that I can understand her, and the whole time I hear someone screaming in a language I can't recognize in the room with her. It sounds like some fanatic speaking in tongues. I finally get her calmed down enough to understand what she's saying. My husband shot himself in the head. You've got to help him. He's talking to me, but I don't understand what he's saying. Please, 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 you've got to come help him. The husband and wife were arguing. The husband was drunk. He gets his .45 and shoots himself in the head. The incoherent yelling I was hearing was his broken brain trying to scream, cry, ask for help. He was still alive when they got to the hospital, but was taken off life support the next morning. From Redditor Psychedelic Goat 42. A friend of mine who used to dispatch has the worst story I've ever heard. It was one of her first solo 911 calls, and the caller is requesting medical help with slurred speech. My friend was under the impression it was an elderly gentleman experiencing a stroke. When units arrived on the scene, however, they discovered that the caller was a 17-year-old who had been shot in the face by his mother. He bled out and died while my friend was on the phone with him. From Redditor Lurler. I answered a call from a woman who had run over her husband in a speedboat and chopped off his legs. Their children were with her in the boat. It was the husband's 40th birthday, and he wanted to go water skiing. She didn't want to, because she wasn't comfortable driving the boat. He died. From Redditor Gangrape Chickens. I was a year into the job in a fairly large town with woods all around. I got a call from a young man who identified himself as being 21 years old. He said he was on a hike with his best friend, but this is where it got weird. I asked for his location, and it was about 50 miles from the nearest trailhead, but not in the direction the trail moves. I asked him to tell me what the problem was and what services he needed when he burst into tears, saying one moment his friend was in front of him, and the next he was gone. I dispatched the sheriff and was told neither man was ever found. It still freaks me out. From Redditor Victimone 911. The man calls, and you can hardly understand him. He says his address, and when I ask what is the problem, he says, "Cut, leg, off, chainsaw." He moans, and then that is all I hear. He bled out before anyone got there. He was cutting branches in the tree, and then fell out of the tree. As he was falling with his chainsaw, he cut off his leg. He tied his belt around the stump, crawled to his phone on the porch, and called. He died with the phone in his hand. From Redditor Victimone 911. A man locks his 2 toddlers in the bathroom, shoots his pregnant wife, calls 911 and says, "Call my father and send police. I killed my wife and I'm going to kill myself." He hangs up and kills himself. The police get there and hear the toddlers crying in the bathroom, so they kick the door in. From Redditor XX Magic Chick. One night the wife calls in with slurred speech, telling the operator that her husband is in the corner of the kitchen in a chair with a gun. In the background you can hear the man verbally harassing the woman on the phone, telling her that she's a bitch, C-word, blah blah blah, and that she ruined his life. The wife just keeps telling him to shut up, tells the operator that he pushed her into a wall earlier, which left a hole in the drywall. She wants him to spend a night in jail to sleep it off, because now he's carrying the shotgun around, and she's worried he'll mess things up in the neighborhood. There's the sound of a struggle, and then she hangs up the phone. She calls back a few minutes later. The man is yelling so loudly that the woman is hard to understand. He still has the shotgun and says he's done with this life. She says he went down to the basement. She gives the operator her information and repeats, he just needs to sleep this off. 10 minutes go by, and the woman is still on the phone with the operator, talking about her husband's drinking habits, threats of suicide all the time, and her bruises throughout the years from all of the abuse. The operator tells the woman to check on her husband. She agrees, but with an attitude that shows she could be rolling her eyes, like it's the same crap every night. A shot is heard. The woman makes a strange, "oh," noise. She walks down the steps. Incoherent words. The woman then starts yelling, "Why? Why? Why? Why?" And the phone drops to the ground. The operator asks what happened. No answer. All you can hear is a woman yelling at someone. She then picks up the phone and tells the operator that he shot himself in the head and there's blood everywhere. The operator tells her to calm down and to let the officers in. The husband shot himself in the temple, shattering his entire skull. From Redditor Miscreant 908. 1979 New York City. I got a call from a crying child, a little boy, saying his mom and dad were fighting, and his dad said he was going to throw the mom out of the window. I could hear a terrible fight going on in the background. Woman screaming, things breaking, man yelling. The poor kid didn't know his address. We didn't have the technology for caller ID, so we would have to use reverse telephone books. A trace would take forever. Anyway, while I'm trying to get the address, I hear a horrific scream and glass breaking. A few seconds later, the other operators in the room are getting calls about a woman lying in the courtyard who came out of a window. Very sad. Worst of all, I'm sure someone else in this apartment building must have heard this fight, but no one called for help until it was too late. Poor kid. Thank you guys for watching and listening to these true scary story narrations. If you're new to the channel, remember, be sure to subscribe now for future content. Leave a like on this video because it truly helps my channel grow. There is a link to my email in the description box below, so send your stories so we can keep this channel going strong. Until we meet again, happy 2022. Stay sinful.